All right, today we're going to look past the headlines and the official statements to do a deep dive into the logistics of this conflict. This is all about the war of attrition. Specifically, we're analyzing the weapons stockpiles of both the United States and Iran.
So on one hand, you've got these really confident public statements. The US is projecting this image of an almost unlimited supply, while Iran talks about having this deep capacity for resistance. But what's the real story? What do the numbers actually tell us about who can sustain this fight the longest?
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll cover the sheer logistic cost of this war. Then, we'll look at Iran's firepower and the very expensive dilemma facing the US. After that, we'll get into the uncertainty around air defense. And finally, wrap up with the strategic outlook.
Okay, let's kick things off with our first section, the logistic cost. Because this conflict isn't just about what happens on the battlefield, it's a war of production.
And this really gets to the core truth of what's happening. Both sides are just burning through weapons way faster than they can make new ones. And that one simple fact changes everything. It means industrial endurance, not just fancy tech, could be the thing that decides this.
And just to give you a sense of what that high tempo actually means in practice, these initial numbers from the Institute for National Security Studies are pretty eye-opening. We're talking over 2,000 airstrikes, nearly 600 missiles, almost 1,400 drones. Trying to keep that pace up is a monumental challenge for any military.
All right, let's shift gears and look at our second point. We're now seeing some pretty direct evidence of attrition on the Iranian side, and the numbers show a clear decline.
So check this out. According to General Dan Kane, the top US commander in the region, there has been a staggering 86% drop in the number of ballistic missiles Iran is launching each day. That is a massive indicator of pressure on their most powerful weapons.
And it's not just missiles. We're seeing the exact same story with their UAVs, their drones, a 73% decrease in daily launches. Even for a system that Iran is famous for mass producing, this kind of operational tempo just doesn't seem to be sustainable.
So the big question here is, why? Are they doing this on purpose, trying to save what they have left? Or is this a sign that their factories are really starting to struggle, especially with US and Israeli air power actively targeting those production sites?
Okay, so now let's flip the script and look at the United States. They're facing a completely different kind of problem, but it's just as critical. It's not about running out of weapons, it's about the cost of the weapons they're using. This really gets to the quiet vulnerability in America's military might. Their weapons are incredible, for sure, but they are also incredibly expensive and they take a long time to build. In a grinding war of attrition, that creates a serious tug of war between capability and sheer capacity.
So what do you do? Well, we're seeing the US make a really smart strategic pivot. Once they established air superiority, they could shift tactics. Instead of firing those super expensive, long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles, they're now able to use much cheaper and more plentiful air-dropped bombs like JDAMs.
And this quote from Mark Kanzian, a former Marine colonel over at CSIS, just nails it. This strategic shift is a game changer for sustainability. By switching to munitions they have thousands of, they can keep up this air-to-ground campaign for a very, very long time.
But, and this is a big but, the war from the air is only half the story. The air defense side of things, well, that's a much more uncertain picture for the United States, and it all revolves around one specific bottleneck. And this number right here, this is the core of the problem. We're talking over $4 million for a single Patriot interceptor missile. When you're using those to shoot down drones that might cost a few $1,000s, the economics are just brutal. And that high cost is tied directly to a limited supply. So let's put some numbers to this. CSIS estimates the US has about 1,600 of these missiles in its entire stockpile. The problem? They only make about 700 a year, and allies all over the world want them. You can see how fast that stockpile could just vanish. And that brings us right back to Mark Kanzian's analysis. He draws a really clear line in the sand here. The air-to-ground fight, the US can sustain that. But the air defense fight, that's where the real strategic risk and uncertainty lie.
Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together. We've talked about consumption rates, production problems, and strategic shifts. So what does it all mean for the endgame of this conflict?
And really, it all comes down to this. This war is being decided on the factory floor just as much as it is on the battlefield. That ability to build and resupply, that has become the real clock ticking on this whole conflict. It's going to determine how long this goes and what the political outcome looks like. Now, despite those challenges we talked about with air defense, the official line from the Pentagon, from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, is pretty blunt. The belief is that at the end of the day, America's industrial depth is simply too great for Iran to overcome.
And all of this leaves us with a really fundamental question for modern warfare, doesn't it? What's ultimately more decisive? Having the absolute best, most advanced technology, or just having a better and more resilient production line? This conflict might just give us the answer.
Thanks for watching this breakdown. If you want to stay on top of this and other global conflicts with clear, concise analysis, make sure you subscribe to our Global Conflict Brief channel.